Johnny Carson was in the middle of interviewing actor Tony Curtis when mid-sentence, Curtis suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed on the Tonight Show stage. What Johnny did in the following 90 seconds saved his life. Doctors later confirmed that without Carson's quick response, Curtis might have died on live television. It was April 15, 1982. The Tonight Show was moving along as usual on what seemed like an ordinary Thursday evening. Johnny Carson was hosting Tony Curtis, the celebrated Hollywood star known for classics like Some Like It Hot and Spartacus. At 57, Curtis remained active in the industry, appearing on the show to promote his newest film and reminisce about Hollywood's golden age. The conversation had been flowing perfectly. Curtis was relaxed, entertaining the audience with behind-the-scenes stories about working with Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon. His humor, timing, and natural charm had everyone laughing, Johnny included. The energy was lively, the chemistry between Johnny and Tony effortless, two icons sharing stories and laughter on national television. But about 8 minutes into the interview, something shifted. Johnny Carson, with decades of experience handling live broadcasts and reading people, sensed it first. Tony Curtis, who had been gesturing animatedly while recalling a story about director Billy Wilder, suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His face, once full of color and warmth, turned pale. "Tony," Johnny asked, leaning forward slightly. "You all right?" Curtis didn't respond right away. He pressed a hand to his chest, blinking rapidly as if trying to steady himself. The audience, unsure if this was part of a comedy bit or a dramatic pause, remained silent. Curtis began, but his voice sounded strained. Confused. "Johnny, I don't feel—" Before he could finish, Tony Curtis slumped forward in his chair, his body going limp, head dropping toward his chest. For a moment that seemed endless but lasted only seconds. Johnny had to grasp what was happening and act. The cameras were still live. 20 million viewers were watching. His guest and friend, one of Hollywood's greatest, had just collapsed in front of him. Many in that position might have frozen, panicked, or shouted for help. But Johnny Carson acted instantly, in what medical experts would later describe as the exact right move at exactly the right time. Johnny stood up and rushed toward Curtis, who was motionless in his chair. "We need a doctor," Johnny called out, his clear, steady voice cutting through the stunned silence that filled the studio. "Is there a doctor in the audience?" Johnny called out. But he didn't wait for an answer. Keeping his voice steady and composed, the tone of someone in control and focused, Johnny was already taking action. He gently helped Tony Curtis out of the chair and lowered him to the floor, laying him flat on his back. The audience, now realizing this wasn't part of a skit but a real medical emergency, sat in shocked silence. "Tony," Johnny said firmly, leaning close to Curtis's face. "Tony, can you hear me?" Curtis's eyes were half open, but there was no response. Johnny quickly checked his breathing, placing his ear near Curtis's mouth and watching his chest for movement. Curtis was breathing, but it was shallow and uneven. Then Johnny did something few expected from a talk show host. He loosened Curtis's collar and tie to make breathing easier and lifted his legs, resting them on the nearby guest chair. This position, later confirmed by paramedics as the right one, helped blood flow back to Curtis's brain and vital organs. "Call 911 right now," Johnny instructed his stage manager, who was already moving toward the nearest phone. Then Johnny turned to Ed McMahon, who had rushed over from his spot. "Ed, get the audience back. Give us some space." What followed was a clear example of calm leadership under pressure. Keeping one hand on Curtis's shoulder to track his breathing and responsiveness, Johnny addressed the live television audience with impressive composure. "Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny said, looking straight into the camera, "we're experiencing a medical emergency here. We have help on the way, and I want everyone to know that Tony is breathing and we're taking care of him." Johnny said calmly, "We'll take a short break while he gets the medical attention he needs." The way Johnny spoke, unsteady, clear, and composed, avoided panic. There was no drama in his tone, only reassurance and authority. His calm communication helped keep both the studio audience and viewers at home steady and informed. Fred de Cordova, the show's director, quickly cut to a commercial break. However, the cameras continued recording on stage. That footage, later reviewed by medical experts and emergency response trainers, showed Johnny Carson handling the situation perfectly from start to finish. Within 3 minutes, though it felt far longer to everyone present. Paramedics arrived. They had been stationed nearby under NBC's emergency protocol, but even they were impressed by Johnny's response. Tony Curtis was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors confirmed he had suffered a mild heart attack, what specialists call a warning event, which could have been much more severe if not managed properly. The next day, Dr. Michael Richardson, the cardiologist treating Curtis, held a press conference that quickly made national headlines. "Mr. Curtis is stable and expected to make a full recovery," Dr. Richardson announced. "But I want to make one thing very clear. If Johnny Carson hadn't reacted exactly as he did, keeping Mr. Curtis's airway clear, elevating his legs to support blood flow, and immediately calling for emergency help, we might be talking about a very different outcome today." 3 weeks later, Tony Curtis returned to The Tonight Show. This time, he wasn't there to promote a film or tell Hollywood stories. He came to thank Johnny Carson for saving his life. When Curtis walked onto the stage, the audience broke into thunderous applause. Johnny stood to greet him with a hug, and for a brief moment both men were too emotional to speak. "You know, Johnny," Curtis began once they sat down, "I've done a lot of dangerous stunts in movies. I've fought gladiators, hung from buildings, done all kinds of crazy things. But the scariest moment of my life was waking up in the hospital and finding out I collapsed on your show." Johnny replied, "The frightening part for me was seeing you fall and realizing we could lose you right there. I'm just grateful I remembered those Navy first aid lessons." Curtis smiled and shook his head. "The doctors told me what you did went beyond basic first aid. You made decisions in seconds that required medical understanding. You raised my legs, which kept blood flowing to my brain, and you loosened my collar to help me breathe. Every single thing you did was exactly right." What came out during that return interview revealed something few longtime viewers knew about Johnny Carson. After serving in the Navy, Johnny had continued taking emergency response training, quietly renewing his certification year after year. "I always thought that if something ever went wrong on my show, if someone got hurt or sick, and I should be ready," he once said. Johnny Carson's quick actions during Tony Curtis's medical emergency had an impact that went far beyond that single night. NBC immediately strengthened its emergency medical procedures for all productions. Other major networks soon followed, ensuring trained medical personnel were always available during live broadcasts. Emergency response programs began using the footage from that episode as an instructional example, demonstrating how calm leadership combined with basic first aid can save lives in critical moments. The American Red Cross even contacted Johnny, asking him to appear in a series of public service announcements promoting first aid education. Johnny agreed, saying, "If what happened on my show inspires even one person to learn these skills, then something positive came out of a frightening situation." For the rest of his life, Tony Curtis never stopped acknowledging what Johnny had done for him. In his autobiography published years later, Curtis devoted an entire chapter to that night. "Johnny Carson saved my life," he wrote. "But more than that, he showed me what it means to be prepared for the unexpected. He could have frozen or waited for help, but instead he acted with skill and compassion, and I'm alive today because of him." After his heart attack, Curtis made major changes to his lifestyle. He quit smoking, improved his diet, began exercising regularly, and became an advocate for heart health awareness. He went on to live another 28 years, passing away peacefully in 2010 at the age of 85. "Johnny gave me those years," Curtis said in one of his final interviews. "Every birthday, every holiday, every moment with my family, I owe that to Johnny Carson knowing what to do when I needed help the most." The night Tony Curtis collapsed on The Tonight Show became a defining moment that revealed another side of Johnny Carson. He wasn't just a legendary entertainer, known for perfect timing and humor. He was also a man who valued preparedness, kept his training up to date, and stayed calm and capable under pressure. Medical professionals still study the footage decades later as an example of effective emergency response. When asked about the most intense moment of his Tonight Show career, Johnny always mentioned that night with Tony Curtis. "People tune in to laugh and be entertained," Johnny said. "They don't expect to see the host managing a medical emergency. But life doesn't stop just because the cameras are rolling. I'm simply grateful I could help a friend when it mattered most." Today, Emergency response trainers still use that footage to demonstrate that knowing what to do in a crisis isn't only for medical professionals, and it's a skill anyone can learn and everyone should have. Johnny Carson entertained millions during his 30-year career, but the 90 seconds he spent saving Tony Curtis's life may have been his most meaningful performance, not because it was entertaining, but because it was real, effective, and life-saving. If this remarkable story of quick thinking and preparedness inspired you, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories showing how celebrities proved they were more than entertainers. Share this video with someone you care about, and consider taking a first aid course. You never know when those skills might help you save a life.